It's pitch black. No phone glow, no streetlights, no nightlight humming in the hallway. Just a fire burning low, and around it, a handful of people who have absolutely nothing to scroll through. So what did they do? Here's what modern people assume. Ancient humans collapsed at sundown like a dead phone battery and woke up at sunrise, 8 clean hours later, refreshed and ready to forage. Nice story. Wrong story. Because the truth is, the night wasn't downtime. It wasn't a black hole between 2 productive days. For most of human history, the dark was a second shift, full of talking, fixing, watching, worrying, and yes, occasionally, a little more than that. And the wildest part? Some researchers think our ancestors didn't even sleep in 1 block. They slept in 2. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your own 2 a.m. wake-up completely differently. Let's start with the deepest evidence we've got. And it's not a diary. It's not a painting. It's ash. At Border Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found grass bedding layered with ash, dated to roughly 200,000 years ago. That ash is believed to have been used to deter ticks and other biting insects, layered right into the sleeping area. Sleep advisor. Translation: these weren't people just collapsing on bare rock. They were engineering their sleep environment. Bug control, insulation, a designated spot to lie down that's not survival on autopilot, that's planning. 200,000 years before memory foam, someone was already thinking about how to get a better night's rest. But here's the thing, nobody tells you a sleeping area implies a waking area too. If you've got a spot for rest, you've got people rotating in and out of it. Someone's always up. Because a fire doesn't tend itself, and predators don't run on a schedule. Here's where it gets interesting, because your body might still remember this. Humans are one of the only primates that sleeps in 1 long, deep block on the ground, in groups, instead of scattered up in trees in short naps. That's not random. That shift is tied to controlling fire and having group protection, which let our ancestors actually risk deep, vulnerable sleep at all. But controlling fire doesn't mean fire babysits itself. Before humans gained real control over fire, something that likely happened around 400,000 years ago, early humans simply lived roughly half their lives in literal darkness with no light source beyond the moon. Once fire entered the picture, someone had to keep it alive through the night. Someone had to wake up cold, blind, and annoyed and feed it more wood, Pacific Standard. That job didn't disappear. It just changed form. You've felt this. The phantom 3 a.m. Wake up, lying there for 20 minutes, mind wandering, then drifting back off. Some researchers think that's not a malfunction. That's a fire tender's brain, still running old software. You're not broken. You're ancient. Now, sleeping near a fire is one thing. Building your entire sleep schedule around darkness on purpose is another. Among the ancient Romans, written sources describe people sleeping in 2 distinct phases. A first sleep, lasting a few hours, then a waking period, then a second sleep afterward. In that gap between the 2 sleeps, people didn't just lie there. They prayed, read, had sex, or simply sat with their thoughts. Sapiens sapiens. This is documented behavior, not guesswork. Someone, centuries ago, sat down and wrote about getting up in the middle of the night to think, to pray, to be intimate with a partner like it was just Tuesday. Here's the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind. What if insomnia, as we define it today, didn't even exist for most of human history? What if waking up at 2 a.m. wasn't a disorder, it was just Wednesday night, same as always? We didn't lose good sleep. We lost a second shift of it. Now, here's where we have to be careful, because the deeper we go, the quieter the record gets. Night doesn't leave much behind. A campfire from 300,000 years ago doesn't survive as a campfire. It survives as a smudge of ash, if you're lucky and nothing rained on it, flooded it, or got bulldozed by a glacier since then. Whatever happened in the dark, the whispered arguments, the lullabies, the watch shifts, none of that fossilizes. There's no nighttime layer you can dig for with a trowel. So when archaeologists say evidence is limited, that doesn't mean nothing happened. It means the dark did what it always does. It kept its secrets. We're not looking at an empty record because the nights were empty. We're looking at an empty record because the dark doesn't keep receipts. This is where one writer gets to say, "I told you so," about 2,000 years late. For centuries, scholars treated old texts describing segmented two-part sleep as quaint, outdated folklore, interesting, but not real science. Then historian Roger Ekirch went digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from the late Middle Ages and Renaissance, and found the same pattern showing up over and over. People describing a regular practice of a first sleep, a waking period, and then a second rest afterward. Sleep advisor. It wasn't poetic language. It was a documented, ordinary habit, hiding in plain sight in historical records the whole time, dismissed because nobody thought to take night seriously as a subject worth studying. Funny how that works. Sometimes the evidence wasn't buried in the ground. It was buried in a footnote nobody bothered to read at 2 a.m. So is this just a European thing, Romans and Renaissance villagers being dramatic? Let's talk about Mesoamerica, because the pattern shows up there too, completely independently. In classic and post-classic Maya cities, built deep in the tropics, nighttime was anything but quiet. People were hunting, guarding fields, prepping the next day's food, feasting, and celebrating long after the sun went down. Different continent, different language, different calendar entirely, and the same basic truth. The night was working hours, not just resting hours. Sapiens Atlas Obscura. And it goes further than Rome and the Maya. Paleolithic archaeologist April Nowell has pointed out that across history, all kinds of people worked the night shift: hunters, farmers, ironsmiths, sewage workers, poets, navigators, even rebellion leaders, all relying on darkness for cover or quiet or necessity. Smithsonian Associates. Two civilizations, an ocean apart, never comparing notes, somehow arrive at the exact same conclusion. The dark isn't empty, it's just unsupervised. So why split sleep at all? Why not just knock out for 8 hours and call it a day? Because the cold, practical logic of survival doesn't care about your sleep schedule. It cares about staying alive until morning. Waking periods in the night gave people a built-in window to tend the fire, nurse a crying infant, or simply stay alert against whatever might be circling the camp in the dark. You don't get an 8-hour uninterrupted sleep cycle when there's a predator economy operating right outside your firelight. Someone has to be the designated half-awake person. And it's not just safety. Night offered something the day couldn't quiet: escape from the heat and freedom from being watched or supervised by the rest of the group. That's exactly why secret meetings, planning, and private conversations gravitated toward the dark. If you wanted privacy in a world with 0 closed doors, midnight was the only door you had. Smithsonian Associates. So next time you wake up at 3 a.m., for no reason, that's not anxiety. That's a security shift your ancestors never fully clocked out of. Here's the uncomfortable part. The night used to belong to everyone equally. It was communal, practical, sometimes sacred. Then, it got industrialized. Once artificial light scaled up gas lamps, then electric bulbs, then the modern grid night stopped being a shared human rhythm and became a resource to extract labor from. The same darkness that once meant rest, ritual, and quiet conversation got rebranded as the night shift. Factory floors, call centers, warehouses running at 2 a.m. Not because the body wants it, but because the machines never stop and somebody has to mind them. We took something ancient, the segmented, communal, occasionally sacred use of nighttime hours, and turned it into a productivity asset. The fire watcher became the security guard. The midnight storyteller became the graveyard shift line worker. Same hours, completely different relationship with the dark. We didn't lose the night shift. We just stopped getting anything personal out of it. So here's what we actually know. Humans have almost never slept in one tidy, unbroken block that's a relatively recent, electrically lit invention. For most of our existence, the night was split, shared, and busy. And maybe that tells us something bigger. Humans were never built to disappear for 8 hours and reappear unchanged. We were built to wake up in the dark, deal with something, a fire, a baby, a worry, and go back under. Think about it. Border caves' ash-lined bedding, 200,000 years old. Roman writers describing a quiet hour between 2 sleeps. Maya cities buzzing with hunters and feasts long after dark. A historian named Ekirch, finding the proof hiding in old diaries nobody had taken seriously. So the next time you wake up at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, annoyed at your own brain, don't fight it. You're not malfunctioning. You're checking the fire. The dark was never empty. We just forgot how to listen to it.